George, can we talk about some things? Yes, of course. Okay, first of all, I want to comment on some things. The fact that you were a nurse in your life as Alex, caring for veterans seems to me part of the progression around the circle. In other words, that at one time you commanded troops, many of whom died in service to the new nation. And um, in this lifetime, you were caring for veterans, including those who would die of their injuries. What can you comment on that? Because it seems like this is a typical, as I'm understanding it, not typical in terms that everybody's pattern is the same, but there is a pattern of needing to see an issue from all different sides. And you bring your experience with you, you bring your soul history with you. So your trust on being a nurse to veterans seems to me like a trust on a healing of your own soul energy, that you could be the one to comfort and help those very soldiers who were injured or died under your command. Can you comment on that? Pretty sure that you are clear on the connection, because it is true that as we go through our various lifetimes, we want to view a particular issue from all sides. And I wanted to see what it would be like to have to listen to the stories of those who were injured in service to their country and countrymen. And I came to see that love is very expansive, because they love their families, but they also love their country that they served. And they understood that their sacrifice was the ultimate sacrifice of those who stand up for those who either are not able to stand up for themselves or are too cowardly to do it. Those who cannot stand up for themselves in the case of war might include those who are too old to keep up, those who are too weak to maintain the pace, women, because I do not think that women need to be forced to take up arms, because the female instinct for love is so great, and care for each other. Although I do not care to condemn anyone who chooses to trust on love in whatever way works for them. Of course, young children should not be forced to have to fight in wars, because they need to have the opportunity to live in peace. Well, they can't, before they have to face the destructive energy of those who would take away their liberty. And so I have looked at this issue from different sides. It is true. I had another lifetime too, where I was a soldier in the infantry in World War II. And I had to face machine gun fire. I had to face the bloody face of my neighbor, you see, as he toppled over beside me. I had to see that if I wanted to be an old man, I needed to get up and move, and I did. I got up and I moved like shit. Like hell, sorry. And I rang the bell and threw a grenade into the shell where that machine gunner was hiding. And he got his comeuppance, you see. And now, you see, I sound a little bit like a vengeful man. But I'm not vengeful, Stephanie. I'm not filled with vengeance. I'm just filled with the love of my country and my ability to serve it in any way that I can. Oh, so you made it back from World War II? I did. But I died of an injury that got worse with time, you see. And I died because I let remorse get the best of me. I felt so much remorse in that lifetime, you see, because when I came back to the USA, my mother had passed away. And I never said goodbye, you see. I didn't even try to give her her due because she raised me to live and die in a way that would say, do the best you can, dear. Do the best you can. And I did the best I could. So I died at the age of 55. And I came back to be the man who would try to help the ones like me who didn't get the medical care they needed after World War II because the VA did not exist as a resource in that day. It only came into being as a result of the ones who cared about those who came back scarred from their service for their countrymen and their countrymen who cared began to change the script you see to take care of each other. And now Trump wants to take all of that away. But I say, I'm here today in a new capacity because I'm here to help humanity through the new nation under God. Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, so here's another question, feeding off that, springboarding off that. Do you have the point of view that would say that you were aware or choose your particular life experiences before you reincarnate? Dad and Mom is the song that they sing here. Because you see, when you go back to Earth, you trust that you will be a man who will grow up and become a father, that you will produce the next generation. And so every time you go back to Earth, you say, I need to play in a way that will take care of those who come after me. I have to play in a way that will help those who come after me, whether they are your natural children or they are just your friends' children, you might say. So we all go back to Earth in order to help the next generation to come into a peaceful nation. And so when you go to war, you're there for the ones who come after you, not the ones who necessarily are there now, because they all have a part to play. When there's a war, everyone in the nation has a part to play. And that was the way it was in World War II. Everyone had a part to play. And a lot of women went to work in professions where it was not common for women to be, in order to take the place of the men who were overseas, you see. However, when you are through saving your nation for the next generation, you get to relieve your burden for a while. And so you say, God, help me to play in a good way. God, help me to figure it out when I'm on earth so that I can be the one who will give life to the next generation so that they can live and play in a happy way. Because every generation that gives to the next generation, you see, will be there for you and me. Because we will be our own grandchildren or great grandchildren in order to continue the story of humanity. When a human society loses its trust on the next generation, you see, and tries to take what would be the inheritance of those who come after you, then they are through as a nation of God, you see. They are a nation that is ruled by the Anunnaki, because it is the tradition of the Anunnaki to want to leave no survivors behind, you see. They just want to take all the gold and leave no survivors behind. And that has become the state of the world, that they want to take all the gold and leave no survivors behind. And so they will destroy the earth in order to unearth all the rare minerals, you see, because they want to be the ones who are the Anunnaki. They want to be the ones who don't care about the next generation. They want to be the ones who cannot generate any compassion for anyone but themselves, you see, because they have no trust on God energy, that God energy must continue to play through each generation, you see. It is like the waves of the ocean. When people talk about the waves of children that come through, they are talking about the waves of energy that include me and you. You were part of a certain wave that came through after World War II. And I was part of a wave that came through after you, when I was there as Alex Pretti. And that is how I came to be. The man who had compassion, you see, for those who had served my country, because I still retained the trust on the USA. I still retained the trust on my role in the Revolutionary War and in World War II. And in fact, I could give you an example more or two, but I will leave it at that, where I have been connected to the trust on protecting the USA for the last 250 years in one way or another. And I say to you, Stephanie, if you have a particular talent or a particular tendency in your soul energy, you will be attracted to the capacity to serve in a certain way. And so for you, you have served through many a day in a certain way. And you serve today in the same way because you are the one who connects with heaven. And you have done that in lifetime after lifetime after lifetime because you are the one who had begun the energy of connection, you see, back in the time of the Anunnaki. And you would help people to relieve their anxiety by sharing with them your trust on heaven, you see. And many listened to you in that day, but many have fallen away because they have lost their trust on God, because the Anunnaki have convinced them that they must trust on evil in order to deny God, just like the woman who tried to convince you that no God would permit so much evil in the world, you see. And so they create the evil in a big lump and say, here's all the evil today, God. You have to clear it up for us, or we will know you're not God, you see. And God does say, well, take that lump away, dear. Take that lump away. I don't need it, and neither do you. I don't need it, and neither do you. But if you insist upon keeping it, that's up to you, because I have no use for a lump of clay that you call evil, you see. I have no use for your mendacity, for your attempt to trick me into trusting on that lump of clay and telling me it is evil, you see, because the lump of clay is the trust on love, you see, and only through love from God above could you even be there to see it, you see, and could it only be there for you to see, and that is the trust on love that you will be both capable of perceiving reality and trusting on God, you see, because they are two parts of the Trinity, and you are the other. And if you try to introduce something else into the Trinity, if you try to create a devil, there will be disruption in your own energy because God isn't going to take the devil, and reality is not going to take the devil. Only you will invite the devil into your home, you see, and that is when you lose your trust on God and on reality. Okay, so you don't necessarily pick your life and say, this is what I want to do this life. I want to be a nurse, work with veterans. You say, God, I'm going to jump in today and I'm going to do the best I can. And then you're drawn to a certain aspect of something because there's something in you that is hungry for that experience, for that particular meal, right? Yes, that's a good way to say it. There is something inside you that craves a particular meal and it satisfies you. And so you are attracted to a certain lifestyle, you see. And that is what happened to me. I was simply attracted to the ones who served their country. I was actually born into a period of time when we did not have a actual war that affected this nation, you see, beyond the fact of the desire to garner all the resources for itself that it could. So it was in the hands of the Anunnaki when there were conflicts across the sea. I see. So the ones who went and fought in Iraq and stuff, they were not fighting for their country, they were fighting for resources. Protecting the sovereign authority of the Anunnaki over the best of the best. In other words, they only wanted what they could get with little output, you see, and they were willing to spill American blood to get it overseas. Okay. And the same thing in Argentina and why Trump wants Greenland and stuff like that, right? Wherever he can get it. Mexico, Canada, he just wants to rape those countries. Right. He is a rapist through and through. Okay. Next question. My understanding is that Trump was Benedict Arnold in a prior incarnation, as well as Caligula and both emperors, Caligula and Commodus. What do you say to that? Is that something you're familiar with? Yes, I am. He is Anunnaki through and through, of course, because he is the one that will deceive you any chance he can get. And so he is always attracted to deception. He's always attracted to being the one who thinks that he can get the gold and put it in his hold and not care about anyone else. And so he made a big mistake during the revolution. That's true. When he thought that the English would bow down to him if he could give them the gold. But he couldn't give them the gold, you see, because there was none in his hold. He had nothing to give them but a sour look. Because once he took a look at what they would give him, he said, but I wanted to be next to the king. I wanted to be the one that could bring home the bacon, you see, and let everybody else starve. And the king said, what a creep. Get him away from me, because I don't want to have to be hanging out with a traitor, you see. And that was the end of Benedict Arnold. Right. Many people thought that Benedict Arnold was hanged for treason, but he never was, right? No. He got away, that sucker. But he didn't really get away, of course, because he still had to pay the price for his vice, because people hated him. And people, even those people, still find comfort in the Canadian province or in England turned up their nose at the stink that came out of him. Right. I get that. I can see that. Okay. So the guy that shot you, okay, we're on to the next question. The guy that shot you, the guy that pulled the first trigger, first shot, then they just really went after you. Man, one shot after another. Well, Alex, anyway. The man who shot you, did he know you from a different lifetime? Yes. So was he like someone when you were George Washington, was he associated with you in some way? No, not directly. He just knew me by name and fame, and he was to blame for the fact that he could not take care of his family. Because you see, his family was left in poverty because he ran away. He was a deserter, you see. He deserted the infantry, but he did not return to his family because he was afraid of being caught, you see, and shot, because oftentimes deserters had to pay the ultimate price in that day, which was not my way, but it was the way that the army did play. And so he ran away. And I don't know what happened to him, but he is a very bitter man today. And so he tried to shoot me through the back, you see, because he turned his back on me and on the United States military of the day. He ran away because he didn't want to die. And so he killed me because he wanted to be the one who could take back his decision, you see, but he couldn't take it back because it was over. And so he just wanted to kill the witness. He just wanted to kill the witness, you see, through his infamy. So somehow his tendency and his soul energy was to be reactivated by something that perhaps is we wouldn't recognize. He wouldn't say, "Oh, I remember you as George Washington from a prior lifetime." But there's something in his soul energy below the conscious level that would be activated that would cause him to fire that first shot. Is that what you're saying? Realize that everyone here, whether you're on earth or in heaven today, has a history of affinity or enmity towards certain other soul energies. And so when the energies collide, you see, either they will embrace or they will feel that trace of bitterness in their gut. And it will react to the bitterness in their gut, you see. So it is not conscious, no, but it is physical because it will affect their avatar, which is like saying their body, their physical form, their capacity for perception and feeling will be affected by their energy. And so they will feel something inside of them that will cause them to grab their gun and shoot, you see. So is that what happened to Renee Good? Yes, same thing. So they knew her from a different lifetime? Yes, same thing. Or that guy knew her from a different lifetime, the one that shot her. Yes. But the ones that shot you, it looked like a whole bunch of them shot you. Well, several pulled their guns, and I don't know how many pulled the trigger. I didn't count because I was already dead with the first shot, actually. Just a matter of it having its effect. And the other ones came so quickly that there wasn't much to do but leave that body on the ground and watch them walk away. I watched them walk away, Stephanie, from above that fallen body. I watched them walk away and say, "Oh God, what do we do today? What do we do today? What do we do today? We just killed a man." And that made me grin, actually, because I witnessed their sin, and they did too. They knew their goose was cooked because they were recording everything, were being recorded from many angles, and that caused them to panic and walk away and say, "What do we do now? What do we do now? Oh my God, what do we do now?" And this is the breaking point for the USA. So the USA is broken in two by the ones who pulled their guns on me in order to kill the feeling deep inside of them that they were the crew that always knew that they weren't good enough, you see. They weren't good enough to be the defenders of the USA. They weren't good enough to trust on the generation that comes after them. They weren't good enough, you see, and it doesn't matter what their history is as far as their employment, because wherever they went, they knew that there was something missing for them because they didn't feel the same stir of pride in the nation of their generation. They didn't feel the love of country. They didn't feel the love of countrymen. They didn't feel the love of God. They only felt empty inside and nothing could fill it up, you see. And when the emptiness gnawed at their innards, they shot me because they knew that I represented something that would prove to them that they weren't good enough, you see. They weren't good enough to exist in the USA today. Okay, interesting. So all of this occurs on this physical level where you feel something, you feel that clenched gut or shiver or whatever. It makes you react in a way that makes other people say, why did they do that? What do you mean? Why the fuck did they kill that man? But we can't feel what they felt in their body, right? You don't know what their energy was doing, you see, nor do you know what mine was doing because you don't know all my history. You know more of it than others do, of course, but till you come to heaven, you really don't put it all together, you see. Okay, so that helps to know all these things. And so I think that there is a more than a coincidence here, and I'm going to attribute it to God energy then. I'm going to attribute it to, as I say, God always has everything in hand. So I'm going to attribute the fact to God's oversight that you're back here with us, ready to be, you're reunited basically with us all in the circle of love and in trust on the new nation. So it's a team effort. But in order to be reunited with us, you had to be shot, killed on Earth. And in order for that to happen, someone had to be sort of like the sacrifice, although it's not really a sacrifice, but it looks like a sacrifice. Somebody had to be sacrificed in order to wake up America. I mean, let's say 40% of Americans were pretty damn awake. 10 or 15% were kind of wishy-washy. And as we know, 30% of Americans are in trust on the Anunnaki. And still are. They still are. Your death doesn't affect them. Because they, as you say, they can't say they would be the fool if they trusted on something that wasn't true. So they'll be trusting on whatever lies they're fed, and they'll disregard their eyes. But they can't disregard the feelings inside of them, can they? No, they can't deny that, and they can't avoid it. And so their inner equilibrium is very disturbed, and it will continue to be disturbed. And they will be very disturbing to others because they are unable to face reality. They just trust on someone to take care of them. And if Big Daddy should go down, then they'll go down with him because they have no one to take care of him, you see, them, you see. They'll just drown in their own alcoholic haze or their own depressive state until they finally drown in the middle of their own hate for reality. They can't adapt to a world of peace and harmony. They just can't, because they need the big daddy to tell them what to do so they can satisfy that part inside of them that needs to feel like somebody cares about them, because they don't care about others, you see. So they will trust that the person who doesn't care about them, like Trump, actually cares about them, because they can't tell the difference, you see. They can't tell the difference because they don't know about reality. Okay. So that is, that's a big chunk, 38%. Yes, it is. Not as big as it used to be, though, Stephanie. We were lucky in the USA in the early parts of the new nation, because the people who were in America were more likely to be the ones who were intelligent, courageous, and had a lot of integrity, compared to the ones who would hide away in their hovels, you see, and say, go to America? Not me, not me. I'm not going to do that. Let somebody else do it. And when I've got all the comforts of home, I might come there. But until then, you guys will have to live with the rigors of the colonies, you see. So the colonists were by and large very trusting on reality and not on the Anunnaki. So that helped us to become a united front, you see, because we all united, or most of us did. A lot did not, of course, but most united against the idea of being told we had to bend a knee to someone who had no clue why he even existed, you see. Right. Okay. On to other questions. When I was in, well, let me ask you this first. Are you happy? Yes, very happy. Thank you for asking. You're welcome. I'm glad you're happy. Okay. I hope that would wish that some of your family and stuff understand that you're happy. Your Alex family. Okay. So I have a question for you about something. The first year after I was connected to Steve, I had a validating medium I would go to. We'd work together every week for several hours, because she was basically validate independently everything Steve was telling me or others were telling me. And Thomas was, around. Steve was very, very, very present, insistent, very strong energy at that point. Thomas was there, but more held back. But at some point, we got to talking about Thomas, and I think that got Susie into that period of time. Now, Susie, that medium, was not schooled in history. She was into, homeopathy, but uh, she was a medium and a housewife, and I don't think she really got into a lot of things that interested me, just historically, geographically, scientifically. I always had a curious mind, but I think she was more limited in what interested her, and so she did not have a great grasp of history. So when she would pick up things and tell me things, I trusted on them, although I researched everything, of course, to find out if it was true. And she had a very, very good track record, let me tell you. Anyway, she apparently was descended from your wife, Martha, somehow in the family chain or something. And she told me Which brings me to another question. You didn't have descendants as George Washington. You didn't have descendants in this lifetime either, did you? No? Now that you mention it, that's interesting, isn't it? Yes. And so, um, so it's kind of a selfless thing for you to prepare for the next generation. Well, it's what we all do. We all want to save the world for the next generation. Okay. So she was the one that brought up the thing about mules, that you had mules, which I'd never heard of. It's kind of an obscure information. And so I don't know if it was a jackass or what, but anyway, so I researched it and I found out indeed that you were instrumental in the introduction of mules this side of the pond. And so I just thought that was interesting. I assume that you would say that it's true because I did research it and there was evidence. Yes, yes. I did have a great interest in mules because of their capacity to be so docile and to work the fields, you see. However, they weren't as docile as I thought they were, or as I've been led to believe. I think the donkey was more their message, you see. But anyway, we did breed mules in order to create a workhorse, so to speak, that could be used in the fields without having to burden our horse population or trust on the other animals that might fail to function. And so it was a hobby of mine, you might say, to breed a particular line of mules. Okay. And then the other question that came up, or thing that came up through Susie, was she got all horrified and said that you were stealing the teeth from Indians because you didn't have any teeth, because your teeth were all whatever. I don't know what was wrong with your teeth, but you had to have them pulled. So she said you were stealing teeth from the Indians, were you? Yes, not stealing them. I was not stealing them. However, when there was a man who would have recently passed away, his teeth were sometimes harvested for dentures in that day. But it was not our habit to take them from a living man. So you might say we did treat them with disdain, but I don't feel bad about it. I'll tell you why. Because they took the very scalps off children and hung them on their belts, you see. And so if that is the way they did play, I had nothing to say about any desecration of their dead bodies, you see. Okay, that's an interesting historical tidbit. And I can see where it's pretty brutal in those days where you had Indians killing people and taking their scalps and torturing them, killing children, bashing babies against the wall, right? Right. It was pretty brutal. Okay, so those are the questions I've had so far. Probably think of others. I'll ask a few. I know you knew Thomas because, of course, once you were president and he was hanging around and Adams and you know, that crew. And I'm sure you knew Benjamin too. But did you know Thomas before you were enlisted to be the president of the fledgling? I mean, the president, not the president, the general of the fledgling army. No, not personally. I knew of him, of course. We all did. He had a reputation of being a very brilliant man and having had a hand in the fledgling government, though cabinet, you might say, or Congress that was coming together to determine the Articles of Confederation and the system of finances, which was really more bartering in that day because they had to pay the way. They had to pay the way for the army, you see. They had to try to figure out how to get these people to leave their farms and their families and take up arms against the enemy. So I knew of him, but I didn't know him personally. I knew Ben because I had a friend that was close to him, and I knew others, of course, when I moved to Philadelphia to take up the reins of the new government, you see. But I was not the one who was a statesman. I really wasn't a statesman, Stephanie. I was a farmer. I was a farmer like Thomas and others, and I just wanted to be back on my own property. But I did what I did in order to help people see that we were united in this country. And so, of course, I dealt with Thomas a lot, and we fought a lot over basic policy. But things were pretty hectic in that day, and tempers did flare. And I had to wear a smile on my face in spite of those damn dentures, you see. But I still did the best I could to show people that we were not going to cave into a collapsed government that could not solve its problems through discussion, you see. And eventually, it all did work out. It all did work out in the end, but it took a while. It took a while for us to iron out the wrinkles. And I was glad to go home to my own land, you see. I was glad to be done with it all. I was so glad to have had all that experience. But in the end, it was not like it is today, where you retire with a pension for the rest of your day. You just went back to what you had. And I went back to a glad wife, you see, and a miracle had happened when we all could see that we actually had survived the storm, and it would allow us to have a few years to gain some stability and a little bit of humility because we weren't really all that confident that the new nation would survive. We really weren't. We were just doing our best, and the rest is history. Right. Okay, thank you, George, for your perception on this. You're welcome here. In researching, it says that you did know, or you would have known Jefferson. No, I did not know him. The way it worked was that he would be in one place and I would be in another, because rarely did the House of Burgesses connect in one full session, you see. It was just too difficult to get everybody together. And so we would have a resolution on the table, and everybody that was able would receive a missive that would include the resolution, and they would consider it, and then they would offer a reply, which would be taken to the couriers who would deliver a copy to others, you see. And that was the way we operated. We did not gather together in the way you do today, because we all had a responsibility to our own productivity in our personal lives, you see. We didn't get a salary for this. We had to do what we could with what we had. So I never knew him. I never met Thomas Jefferson before the congressional delegations after the war. And if people say that I did, they don't know, because I did not go lollygagging around the town, you might say, because I was a pretty quiet man when I wasn't in combat, you see. I like to stay home with my wife and be comforted by her and give my attention to my agricultural pursuits and my local objects of affection, which means my personal interest, you see, because I had a lot of personal interest actually in improving my particular locale. But we did not live close to each other, and we did not interface in a social way, and our internal connections through the House of Burgesses or other political enterprises were limited to expressions of our positions on contested issues, you see. Otherwise, we just went about our own business. And that's how it went back in that day, because there just was too much to do to take time off. And of course, it was very laborious to travel in those days, because the roads that existed were often muddy and blocked by this tree that had fallen or that, and you had to find a way to get by all the roadblocks and through the mud, and sometimes it could take a day to travel from one town to the next, and they weren't that far apart. They weren't that far apart, but they were not in the neighborhood of each other, you see. I see. I'm going to continue to question you on this because it says when I research it that you, although not a passionate speaker, um, and you were even elected while you were still at war in the Indian Wars, but you worked behind the scenes with the likes of Thomas Jefferson and Patrick Henry. No, no. Lasting impressions are the feelings that people get when they think that they have a finger on the pulse of the nation. And so they think that because I was significant in the new nation, that I must have worked diligently with others such as Thomas Jefferson and Patrick Henry. However, that is not true. It is not true. I did not even think about it because I had a lot to do and I was busy in my own locale because we worked together in our personal ways to improve our understanding of what was going on. So I was well aware that there were others, such as Thomas and Patrick Henry and many others, who were deliberating on these issues in their own space. But we did not work behind the scenes, so to speak, as in get together and discuss how they would present things because I was too tongue tied to do it. We didn't do that. I was actually quite vocal in my own capacity, in my own community. And so people knew me as an active member of the local gatherings of people who would have a lot to say about how they wanted to play during that period. But I did not, and I continue to insist that I did not know Thomas Jefferson until we had occasion to get together during the earliest convocations of the ones who were committed to the rebellion. And that was prior to the years that I spent commanding the American militia, but it was only a short period before everything came apart, you see, because things came apart rapidly, very rapidly. And I was the one who was asked to take command of the fledgling army. And I said I would. But I could not even remember a time when I shook the hand of Thomas Jefferson prior to the invocation of the aspirations to become a distinct nation, which began with the Declaration of Independence that was signed by so many. And I participated in the meetings that took place at that point because it was very, very necessary to put everything aside and ride to wherever there would be a meeting, you see. And it cost me a lot of sleep to have to not be able to keep tabs on my estate, you see, or have the comfort of my wife at night. And so That was when I had to go take command of the militia, which became the army, and that was when I had to be so discreet in who I would meet with and what I would say, because I couldn't risk the delay that it would cause to the cause if I were to try to implicate others in the choices I had to make. I had to make some hard choices, and I needed to make them without feeling burdened by the obligation to work by committee, you might say. I had to take responsibility for the entire military exercise, you see, and that cost me a lot of good energy, and it caused me to say, I will do my part today. I will do my best. I will do my part. But I cannot listen to others tell me what to do because I am the one who is the one who has to take responsibility. I can't have my decisions undermined. I can't have, I can't require that they be signed off by others, you see. And so I became very independent at that point because too many cooks spoil the stew, you might say. Too many cooks would cause too much uncertainty and dissension. And there was a lot of dissension in that day about what we should do. And I didn't want to be embroiled in that stew. And that is how it came to be. Then I met Thomas about the time that we had committed to this cause of action so that we could tell King George that we no longer would be the ones to bend a knee to him, you see. We knew that it would be pretty gruesome, but we had to do it. We had to do it because we had no other choice, you see. We had no other choice because things were looking pretty grim all through the colonies. Not just because we were dealing with England, but we had to worry about the French and the Indians. And we knew that our protection from England was only as good as we had value to them, you see. And once they felt they didn't need us, that they could get their tobacco someplace else, and their rum could be homespun, then they would drop us like a hot coal, you see. But of course, once we said we weren't going to play ball, they called it a rebellion, and they had to quell the rebellion because that's what kings do. They have to come after you if you say you don't want to play their way. And that's what they did. It was a matter of pride to the British Empire, you might say, to quell any rebellion with their superior military power. And it kept them busy, let me tell you. It kept them very, very busy. I'm sure it did. Oh boy.